Accidentally went into heat in enemy's territory. Now I'm pregnant. The first thing I ever learned was this: never let the enemy scent you. It wasn't advice, it was law. Something my parents hammered into me before I even knew what scent meant. Don't get close. Don't talk to them. Don't even let them breathe the same air as you if you can help it. Because our packs, we've been at war forever. Centuries of blood feuds, land fights, betrayals so old, half the stories sound more like myths than history. Nobody even remembers who threw the first punch. Doesn't matter. Hate runs deep in the bones now. I was raised on it, raised to sharpen my teeth on it. And I believed it. I did. I still do. Except for him. Attakus, the rival heir, the golden boy across the ridge. And I don't just mean metaphorical golden boy. He actually looks like one. Blonde hair, green eyes, tall and broad, like he was carved out of stone just to scream future alpha. The kind of presence that makes a whole crowd shift when he walks into it. I've hated him since I was old enough to know his name. He made sure of it. When we were kids, it was teasing, cutting remarks, a shove here, a snide smile there, always so smug, so sure of himself. And when we got older, he didn't grow out of it. He only got worse. He'd look at me too long in a crowd, smirk like he was in on some secret only he knew, say my name like it tasted different in his mouth. And I'd hate the way it got under my skin. Hate how I'd go home still thinking about it. Tonight wasn't supposed to be different. Our packs crossed paths at the river, the neutral ground between our territories. Neutral was just a word. Nobody here felt neutral. The air itself felt tense, sharp, like one wrong move would shatter the peace and send us all lunging for each other's throats. We stood across from them, my pack on one side, his on the other, wolves shifting restlessly, shoulders tight, growls rumbling low. I should have been focused on that, on my people, on the hostility sparking in the space between us. But I felt it first. The weight of a stare pressing into me. And when I finally looked up, there he was, Attakus, standing a little ahead of his pack, arms crossed like he owned the whole damn riverbank, like none of this tension even mattered. His eyes were locked on me, bright green, sharp as blades. And of course, he was smirking. That same infuriating, slow curve of his lips, like he'd been waiting all night just for me to notice him. I looked away fast, my jaw tight, nails digging into my palms. But the damage was already done. My stomach had that same restless twist it always did whenever he looked at me like that. It wasn't fair. It wasn't fair how someone I was raised to hate could look at me like I was the only person on the riverbank. And I hated him for it. I had to. Because if I didn't, if I even let myself think for 1 second that there was something else behind that smirk, then I'd already be breaking the one rule I wasn't allowed to break. Never let the enemy scent you. Never let him know. The next day. I shouldn't have been there. Every nerve in my body knew it. The ridge was the line we weren't supposed to cross. One step too far, and you weren't Silas, heir of the Black Moon Pack. You were just prey on borrowed time. But I'd come anyway, because I'd heard the rumors. Movement near the river, border patrols doubling, whispers of something our scouts couldn't confirm. And my father, he doesn't send others when his heir can do the job. So here I was, threading through the shadows of pine and stone, keeping low, keeping quiet. It was supposed to be quick. In and out. Look, listen, leave. Nothing more. But my body betrayed me. It started as a flush in my skin, heat pooling under my clothes. I ignored it, kept moving. But then my breath came shallow, fast, like I'd been running though I hadn't. My hands shook, my chest felt tight, and then it hit me. The realization slammed into me harder than any border guard could have. My first heat. Too soon, too raw. I never leave home without a pouch of heat suppressants. Bitter little capsules that keep everything dull and manageable. My parents say it's reckless to depend on them, but in my world, being caught in a heat at the wrong time is a death sentence. Suppressants were supposed to hold me for another month at least. I wasn't supposed to feel this yet, this wildfire in my veins, this restless ache curling low in my stomach. The only time I ever forget is when I'm on edge, and tonight, across the river from the rival pack, I'm so tense I could snap. Panic clawed up my throat because I wasn't safe in my own den, surrounded by people who'd protect me. I was across the ridge, wrong side of the border, enemy territory. And if anyone caught my scent like this, I'd be done for. It didn't take long. The forest shifted around me, one gust of wind, and I knew. Because wolves are predators, and predators notice. The air changed, sharp and charged, carrying the truth of me on it. My heat, loud, impossible to hide. I heard them before I saw them. Growls, heavy footfalls closing in from every side. My chest seized up. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs felt like fire, too weak, too shaky. The trees around me blurred as dark shapes closed in. Rival alphas, hungry eyes glinting in the shadows. "Do you smell that?" one voice snarled. Another laugh, low and cruel. "He's in heat." My stomach dropped. They wanted me cornered. They wanted to drag me back to their alpha, humiliate me, break me open as revenge for centuries of hatred. I knew it. My father's warnings rang in my ears. Never let them scent you. And yet here I was, burning, exposed, surrounded. I stumbled back, breath ragged, when suddenly he stepped out of the trees. Attakus. He didn't look like the others. He wasn't laughing, wasn't baring his teeth in hunger. He just stood there, tall and steady, those green eyes locked on me with an intensity that pinned me harder than any claw. For one terrifying second, I thought he'd let them take me. Thought he'd smirk, turn away, let me be torn apart. Instead, he moved, fast. A snarl ripped from his throat, sharp enough to silence the others. He shoved the nearest wolf back, planting himself between me and them. His shoulders squared, his voice rough and commanding. "He's mine!" And just like that, every pair of eyes turned on him, and every breath in my chest shattered. A while later, I didn't even know where he was dragging me until my back slammed into wood. A door. His door. Before I could breathe, before the others could push in, Attakus shoved me inside and threw the bolt. The sounds of angry wolves outside blurred, fists hammering against the wood, claws scraping. But he didn't budge. He braced himself against the door, chest heaving, eyes locked on me like I was the only threat in the room. The heat was everywhere. It burned under my skin, clawed at my throat, curled low and relentless in my stomach. Every inhale made it worse, because the room was full of him, his scent. Strong, sharp, intoxicating. I hated it. I hated how good it felt. "Stay away," I rasped, backing into the far corner. My voice didn't even sound like mine. Too raw, too desperate. He didn't move. He just watched, eyes dark, jaw tight like he was holding something back. "If I let them touch you, you'd be torn apart. Is that what you want?" My fists shook. "I don't want you." A lie. We both knew it. Because the heat didn't care about hate. The heat only cared about him standing there, filling the air, filling me with want I'd spent years burying. Minutes bled into hours, every breath heavier, every shift of his body setting fire through mine. He didn't touch me. Not at first. Just stood there, breathing hard, keeping the others out, keeping me in. But the room was too small, the tension too sharp. When he finally moved, when his hand caught my wrist as I stumbled past him, I should have pulled away, should have clawed his face, but I didn't. I froze, then leaned closer. The years of snarling, fighting, swearing to hate each other, They snapped like brittle glass. His mouth crushed mine. My body betrayed me. And somewhere between the growls and the gasps and the desperate tearing away of space that no longer existed, hate turned into something else, something raw, something that felt like it was written in our bones long before either of us was born. His hand fisted in my hair, yanking my head back just enough to bare my throat. I should have clawed him for it. Every instinct screamed enemy, rival, danger. But the heat fog twisted everything. The sting of his grip only made the ache worse. I shoved him back, chest heaving, thinking for half a second I'd gotten control again. But he didn't stumble. He just caught my wrists mid-air, pinned them against the wall above my head like I weighed nothing, his body crowding mine until there was no space left to breathe. "You hate me, remember?" he growled, his lips brushing my jaw, my pulse hammering beneath it. "I do," I gasped. The word was half a lie, half a prayer. "Then tell me to stop." His voice was low, dangerous. "Say it, and I will." But my mouth refused. My body arched instead, chasing his heat, my breath breaking into short, desperate sounds I didn't recognize as mine. And he knew. His smirk burned against my skin as his lips trailed lower, teeth grazing my throat. My knees nearly gave out, but his grip held me upright, forcing me to feel every inch of him pressed against me. Every growl vibrated through my bones. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't sweet. It was sharp, consuming. Too much, and still not. Nearly enough. Years of snarling across borders. Years of pretending those lingering glances meant nothing. Everything collapsed in a rush of teeth, tongue, heat, and hunger we couldn't bury anymore. I hated him. I wanted him. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. All I knew was this. The more I pushed, the harder he pulled me closer. And the more I told myself it was wrong, the deeper I sank into him. And when he bit down, I told myself it didn't matter, that it was just heat, not a bond, not a mark I'd carry long after the fire burned out. The next morning, the world looked different in daylight. The heat was gone, leaving only soreness in my muscles and a hollow ache in my chest. His sheets tangled around my legs, his scent clinging to my skin. I sat up fast. Panic cracked through me, sharp and cold. Attakus was already awake, sitting at the edge of the bed, shirt pulled on, hair mussed. He didn't look at me when he spoke. It was survival, nothing else. The words cut deeper than they should have. I clutched the blanket tighter, forcing my voice steady. "Good, because I'd rather die than want you." That was a lie, too. His jaw ticked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just stood, unlocked the door, and stepped aside. "Go." Before someone notices, I didn't look at him as I left. Didn't breathe until I was across the border again, the weight of his eyes still burning into my back. It was supposed to end there. It had to, but it didn't. About 2 months later. At first, it was just little things. Dizzy spells, nausea, days when my body felt wrong in ways I couldn't name. I thought if I hid it well enough, it would go away. But as the weeks bled into months, I couldn't deny my body's betrayal. My scent changed. First too faint for anyone to notice, but eventually sharp enough to draw sidelong looks from those with keener noses. By the second month, even I couldn't mask it anymore. I'd barely managed to keep my head above water after that night. Every time I caught myself touching the place on my neck where his teeth had sunk in, I told myself it was just a wound, not a bond. Just a scar, not a mark. I wrapped a scarf around my neck every day after, praying no one would see. Because if they did, they'd know. A mark like that wasn't just a bite. It was the goddess's will, binding two souls beyond breaking. If anyone saw, there'd be no going back. I tried to forget the heat, the way his voice had rasped against my skin, the way he'd looked at me after, like I was already his. But forgetting him was impossible. He lingered in every shadow, every dream, every restless night. And now this. Pregnant. With his child. The word alone hollowed me out and filled me with fire all at once. My chest went tight, my stomach twisting with panic, with shame, with something dangerously close to longing. I wanted to scream, to tear it out of me, to deny it wasn't real. But when I pressed a shaking hand over my stomach, all I felt was the echo of his mark burning at my neck, like my body was laughing at me, reminding me what I already knew. I'd never really escaped him, and maybe I never would. I did everything to hide the changes, the nausea, the headaches, even the unfamiliar scent curling off my skin. Only the keenest noticed, hushed whispers at the water source, lingering glances from older wolves. But as my body grew heavier, it couldn't be hidden forever. All it took was one slip, a healer's hand on my wrist, a gasp, and suddenly the truth was an avalanche. My mother wouldn't look at me. My uncle paced like he was already mourning the son he thought he had. My body went cold, but my ears burned as the words crashed over me. Pregnant. He carries. Suddenly, I wasn't Silas anymore. I was a scandal. I was betrayal. "Get rid of it," someone barked. "No, keep it. It belongs to us. He's damned us all." And then the question that sliced deeper than the rest. Who's the father? I stayed silent. My silence was enough. They knew where I was last. And now, it was over. The room erupted when his name was spoken aloud. "Attakus!" Half the room spat in rage. The other half recoiled as if the word itself poisoned the air. In that instant, I knew it wasn't just me they wanted to tear apart. It was him. It was us. It was the child who hadn't even drawn breath yet. And somewhere deep in me, I felt the chains snap. I wasn't just terrified anymore. I was furious, because no one, not my alpha, not my family, not even my own fear, could erase what had happened that night. Word reached across the ridge. The rival pack wanted answers too. Whispers turned to snarls, snarls to threats. Who did the child belong to? Was it Attakus? Or someone else who had caught my scent before he locked me away? The uncertainty poisoned everything. And then, Attakus came. He didn't sneak, didn't ask. He walked into our territory, bold and unflinching, eyes burning like emerald fire as the crowd parted around him. My father demanded his silence, demanded his denial. But Attakus didn't deny. He looked at me, through me, and said loud enough for both packs to hear, "He's mine. They both are, and I'll kill anyone who tries to take them from me." The world tilted. Gasps, snarls, chaos. My pack's fury clashing with his defiance. War brewing, faster than anyone could stop it. And through it all, I stood there shaking. Heat in my chest again. Not from biology this time, but from the way he chose me when he didn't have to. From the way I realized I wasn't just carrying a child. I was carrying the thing that could tear two worlds apart, or bring them together. A few hours later. The ridge burned with firelight. Torches dotted the night like angry stars, circling us in flames. The stench of iron and smoke mixed with the wild bite of wolf scent, thick enough to choke on. On one side, my pack stood in jagged lines, their eyes cutting into me like I was the reason every old wound still bled. On the other, Attakus's pack, their bodies coiled, their teeth bared, their alpha snarling about bloodlines and betrayal. Centuries of bad blood stretched between us like a river of gasoline, and my body, my child, was the match. The shouting began first. My uncle's voice, sharp as a blade. "He's shamed us!" "We'll cut the rot out before it spreads," Attakus' father roared back across the ridge. "Your weak-blooded son trapped mine. He won't live to see the child born." I wanted to scream that they were both wrong, that no one trapped anyone, that what happened was messy and wild and terrifying and real. But my voice was drowned beneath a tide of hatred that had been waiting generations for this excuse. The first wolf shifted with a sound like bone snapping through silence. Then another. Then all at once the ridge erupted in fur and claws and teeth. The ground shook under the weight of centuries collapsing into blood. I stumbled back, useless in human form, as wolves tore into each other. Screams mixed with howls. Flesh ripped. The night air turned wet with blood. And through it all, him, Attakus. Golden fur streaked with crimson, eyes locked on me even as he fought through the chaos. He ripped down anyone who came too close. His body moved like instinct. Protect, defend, destroy. It didn't matter that he was supposed to hate me, that I was supposed to hate him, that our fathers screamed across battle lines for our blood. The only truth was this: he would not let anyone touch me. But even that wasn't safety, because betrayal came from every direction. My own cousin lunged at me, eyes crazed with rage. My uncle's voice rang out over the bloodbath. End him before he ends us all. On the other side, I heard Attakus's father spit venom. Drag him to me! We'll gut him and raise the child as ours. That's when the terror hit bone deep. Neither side wanted us. Neither side wanted the child. They only wanted control. And in the chaos, I realized this war wasn't about Pax anymore. It was about me and Attakus, and what we would choose when the smoke cleared. The ridge was a graveyard in the making. Blood slicked the dirt, howls echoed so violently the ground itself trembled. Wolves ripped at each other like centuries of hatred demanded flesh as payment. And through it all, Attakus fought like a storm-given skin. He tore through his own pack, through mine, through anyone who came near me. His golden fur was streaked crimson, his teeth snapping like thunder. Every time I tried to move closer, he shoved me back, circling me like a wall of muscle and rage. But walls can't hold forever. I didn't see the blade until the torchlight caught it. My cousin, still human, came barreling through the chaos, eyes wild, mouth frothing with spit. A knife gleamed in his fist, sharp and hungry. This ends with you, Silas, he screamed, voice cracking. No bastard child! No shame on our name. The knife arced toward me, and Attakus was there. He shifted mid-air, fur exploding into skin, claws snapping back into hands as he slammed into my cousin. The knife carved a line across his ribs instead of my chest. Attakus roared in pain, the sound feral and human all at once, before he ripped the weapon from my cousin's hand and threw him into the dirt. Touch him again, Attakus snarled, his voice raw and guttural, and I will tear out your throat. The war seemed to pause in that instant. Both sides froze, staring at their future alpha standing naked, bleeding, marked with me. That was the proof no rumor could match. The mark on my neck burned like fire. His scent wrapped around me even stronger than the smoke. Everyone saw it, smelled it. There was no denying it now. I could hear my alpha, my father's voice, roar across the battlefield. You let him claim you? And Attakus's father howled in equal fury. You've doomed us all, boy. For what? An enemy's slut? The words cracked through me like whips, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Attakus turned slowly, his body shaking with rage, chest heaving. His golden eyes locked on both alphas, both fathers. I didn't claim him because I was tricked, he said, voice low and burning. I claimed him because he's mine. The war roared back to life. Wolves lunged, steel flashed, blood splattered the fire-lit ridge. And in the middle of it, I realized the truth. This wasn't going to end until we made it end. A while later. The battle dragged like hell itself had cracked open. Bodies littered the ground. Wolves too wounded to fight limped back into shadows. Blood soaked the earth until it looked black in the firelight. And still, no side gained ground. Because the truth was out now. We hadn't just slept together. We were mated. I was carrying Attakus's child, and neither pack wanted to let go. I was dragged into the center, shoved down on my knees, a knife pressed to my throat. My own uncle held it there, voice shaking with rage. "Choose, Silas! End this. Denounce him. Denounce the child, and we'll spare you." Across from me, Attakus was pinned by his own father, blood dripping down his temple, a hand clamped on the back of his neck like he was nothing but a rebellious pup. His father's words cut through the night. "You give him up, boy. Give him up, or I'll break your bond myself. 2 worlds, 2 cages, and 1 choice." I looked at Attakus, and for a heartbeat, the battlefield disappeared. The fire, the blood, the hatred, it was all background noise. What cut through was him. The way he had shoved me behind him when claws reached for me. The way his blood still stained his chest because he'd taken a blade meant for me. The way he looked at me now, broken, furious, terrified, but still mine. I thought of our child, still just a fragile life inside me. Thought of the mark burning on my neck, the bond etched into my bones. Thought of the way hate had melted into something that felt like destiny. I raised my head. My voice shook, but it carried. "No!" The knife at my throat pressed harder, but I didn't stop. "I won't denounce him. I won't denounce our child. I won't denounce what we are." Attakus's father snarled. My uncle cursed. But Attakus broke free. He tore his father's grip from his neck, shifted back into wolf form with a roar that rattled the sky, and ripped through the line holding him. He came for me like fire through tinder, his body shielding mine, his hands tearing the knife from my uncle's grip. And then he pulled me to my feet. Blood streaked his face, his ribs, his hands. He looked like hell, but his eyes were pure. "I tried to let you go," he whispered hoarsely. "I told myself it was survival, that it meant nothing. But the truth is, I would burn every pack, every law, every father to keep you." The battlefield stilled. Maybe it was the way his words shook through the night, or the way we stood together, bloody but unbroken. Maybe it was the way the bond burned so hot the air smelled of us. But something shifted. The fighting slowed. Wolves backed away. The alpha's voices faltered. And for the first time, both packs seemed to see not enemies, not rivals, but mates. Attakus gripped my face in both bloody hands, kissed me hard enough to steal the breath from my lungs, and when he pulled away, he growled loud enough for the ridge to hear. "He is mine, and this child is ours. If you want war for that, then come, but you'll have to kill us both, Silence." And then, wolves began to retreat. Not all, not willingly, but enough. The air was thick with blood and smoke, but something else pressed down harder. The bond. It pulsed between us, raw and undeniable, the mark on my neck glowing faintly in the firelight like it had been carved by the goddess herself. And that's when I saw it. Wolves lowering their heads, ears folding back, not out of submission to me, not to Attakus, but to the law written in our very blood. A whisper rippled through both sides, half fear, half reverence. The bond is sealed. It hit me then. This was why they had waited so long. For weeks, they'd stalked in silence, snarling at shadows, feeding on rumors. Because without proof, there had still been hope that Attakus and I would renounce it, that the bond would wither, that we would do the breaking for them. But now every wolf on that ridge could feel it. And in our world, there was no law higher than the one laid by the moon goddess herself. No wolf may sever the mating bond. To rip mates apart is to spit in the face of the goddess, to curse the land, to call down madness and ruin on the pack that dares. That law was older than any feud, older than any alpha crown. And in the end, even hatred bowed to it. because wolves can fight blood. They can fight enemies, but they cannot fight the will of the goddess. No one spoke as the mark glowed on my neck, but anger smoldered in every eye. If not for the bond, the law older than any living wolf, I think they would have dragged us apart. Consequences be damned. It wasn't acceptance, not yet. It was fear. The eldest healer spoke, her voice grave. Tear them asunder, and the goddess will turn her face from us. You want to risk the old wrath? Let blood run for eternity? The threat chilled even the boldest. Days, then weeks passed before anyone spoke to us without snarling. Forgiveness would take time, but the packs obeyed the old law, if nothing else. And when the dust finally settled, when the fire dimmed, the war did not end in victory or defeat. It ended in choice. I had chosen him. He had chosen me. Not enemies, not rivals, mates, and our child, our future, was the only thing strong enough to break centuries of hatred. 7 years later. The forest was quiet, not the tense, knife's-edge quiet it used to be, when every snapped twig felt like a warning, but the peaceful kind. The kind that hummed with crickets and rustling leaves, and the gentle laughter of pups chasing each other through the clearing. I sat at the edge of the old border, the place where everything began, and watched my son run with them. He was fast, reckless, his dark hair a tangle of sweat and sunlight, his grin wide and unafraid. Half from me, half from Attakus, and yet wholly his own. There was no line between the packs anymore. Not here, not anywhere. Wolves who had once snarled at one another now shared hunts, patrols, even homes. Centuries of blood had been washed away by something stronger, by choice, by love, by the proof of a child who carried both names, both bloodlines, and neither shame nor fear. Still brooding at the border? Attakus's voice came from behind, amused and low. His arm slid around my waist, pulling me back against the warmth of him. Even now, after all these years, my chest still tightened at the simple press of his lips against my temple. I'm not brooding, I muttered, though the word tasted familiar. Just remembering. His laugh rumbled in my chest. You always remember. Me? I prefer not to waste time looking back when the future's this damn good. I turned my head, meeting his eyes, those same storm-dark eyes that had once been my enemy, my tormentor, my ruin. Now they were home. 7 years, and the mark on my neck still thrummed beneath his touch. 7 years, and I was still his, as much as he was mine. And when our son looked up from the clearing and waved at us, 2 packs, once divided, now whole, raised their voices together in a howl that carried to the skies, not of war, not of rage, but of unity, of a new legacy. I leaned into Attakus's shoulder, my voice soft but certain. We did it. We really broke it, his fingers laced with mine. No, he said, brushing his mouth over my knuckles. You did. You chose me when it mattered, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving you were right. And for the first time in my life, the word forever didn't scare me. It felt like a promise already kept. The end. If you were Silas, would you betray your family for love, or betray your love for family? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to become part of our Rainbow Force, and consider joining our membership for early access and exclusive content. Stay wholesome.